Even that night of being in that house, my best friend had said to me, Cherie, I don't think you're supposed to go back there tonight. I don't have a good feeling about this. Being young, I was very young, single. Oh, I'll be fine. Nothing will happen to me. Sure, that's the attitude when you're young. Everything's going to be fine. I should have listened, right? I had to forgive myself for not listening because my friend was certainly getting something intuitively or spiritually in her spirit that I should not have gone. So many points of forgiveness I needed along the way. Forgiving even my mother for dying. I can't say it was her fault, but I still needed to forgive her. And a 6-year-old mind doesn't know why your mom left anyway, right? We don't know. So I needed to forgive. Many letters and prayers of forgiveness I needed. But as I did that, I got better and better and better emotionally. Part of what I experienced was terror at night. There were weeks until I had gotten some help from a psychiatrist where I didn't sleep at all. Not 1 week, all night long. I would just kind of prop myself up in bed and I would close one eye and then I'd close the other and my eyes would sting and burn and I'd put my head on a Bible and I would try everything on earth. And I had every light in the room on, 6 lights were on in the room and I still couldn't sleep and I was totally terrorized all the time. I never felt safe. I never felt at peace. I could not relax. I could not sleep. My life was filled with fear and terror all of the time. I could only sleep for a little tiny bit during the day if somebody was home, and daytime seemed safer. So I really needed a lot of healing so I could even just sleep at night. But to tell you how bad it was 11 or 12 years later, and I was doing QVC. I don't know, some of you know, I was the other spokesperson for the George Foreman Girls side, and I worked with George. I did the infomercials with him, and I did QVC, and I demonstrated the girls. And my other second home, I called it, was Philadelphia, where I went for QVC. And I had to stay in, and I was married by then, and I had to stay in the hotel room by myself, and any place that was strange and I was alone was terrifying to me. So the only way I could go to sleep, and this seemed normal to me, and now it seems absolutely cuckoo bird crazy, I would stack every movable piece of furniture in that room that I could find up against the door, and I would build a tower. And at the top, I would put the wastebasket. And in my warped mind, I thought, okay, if somebody's gonna break in, the wastebasket will fall off first. It will alert me, it'll make a noise. I'll call the front desk, I'll get security up here, and I'll have a chance to survive. And I did that for several years, every month, sometimes several times a month. It was exhausting because in the morning I'd have to be down there early for the shows. I'd have to take all that down and put it back. It was totally exhausting. But I kept praying for healing, kept praying for healing. For a while it seemed normal, but then it seemed abnormal, doing all of this crazy stuff, these crazy antics. And I kept praying for healing. And one night I got into that room, and it was especially late. Flying back then wasn't nearly as bad as now, but it was bad at times. And I was late, and I was tired, and I looked at that door, and I looked at the room, and I thought, nah, I'm too tired. I'm not stacking this stuff up. And I started praying and calling for the angels to come and protect me and thanking God for his protection. And I said, you know what, Cherie, we're going to live without fear from this moment on. And I did. From that moment on, I chose to live without fear. And I only say that because we might have minor things, major things we deal with, but we can choose. There comes a moment in time, like Father John teaches so much, where we can let go. We can just let it go and say, I'm going to live without this, whatever it is that we're dealing with. I also needed exorcism. This is going way back to the beginning after the attack. I was really attacked by demonic forces in the night. Things I would see, smell, touch, that literal. when something that horrible happens and that demonically driven, there are demons involved with that. There were demons involved with that young man. And I needed exorcism, I needed deliverance, and that was part of my healing. So I never want to leave that out. Certainly Jesus set examples for that, of delivering people from demonic forces that came against them or over them, or whatever you want, however you want to describe it. I remember the night when I was hopeless, terrified, exhausted, and I thought, this is my moment in time. I was sitting in the corner rocking back and forth, thinking I could go into a catatonic state, I could go deep inside and never come back out, but it would be peaceful. But I remembered Psych 101, a professor saying, when people go into a catatonic state, it's really hard to get them out. And I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do that today. Maybe I just won't do that today. But I heard like an inner voice saying, Cherie, just hang on one more day. Just hold on one more day. And every day I held on one more day. And each day got better. That's how Christ heals us so often. It isn't instant. My hand even was not instant. It was just better and better and better and better. And my soul better and better and better and better. There is the word for healing that in the Greek is used in the Bible in a number of places, means therapeuo, and therapeuo means to get better and better and better with care. That's often how Christ heals us. We get better and better and better with care. Care of our soul, care of our body, care of our total being. The church is a big part of that. Prayer is a big part of that. Confession, forgiveness, it all fits together. And I was a prisoner and he set me free. So now I want to talk about forgiveness, and the perpetrator went free. There was an opportunity, a big one, to forgive. So it turned out that the 3 teenage boys, and they had a handprint on the door, the sliding door of the master bedroom where I wasn't, and they traced that to the kid next door. I knew the family next door, to this family that I was house sitting for, and they were all friends of cousins of mine. And so I knew it wasn't the one next door that had attacked me, but it was a gang of 3 that the detective said ran together in that area, that neighborhood, and they'd been in a lot of trouble before. They'd gotten into all sorts of problems. And the one that I described as attacking me, he knew it was one of this 3. But his dad turned out to be the assistant DA of Orange County. And 2 days before the trial, they took the case away from, it went to San Diego to the Attorney General's office, and they took it away from the trial lawyer that was assigned to my case and gave it to a woman who'd only done one trial in her life. She was corporate fraud. I got corporate fraud. And I felt so sorry for her. My cousin and his wife had a huge, beautiful Orange County home. It's a 5-bedroom home, and my cousin's wife invited her to stay at our house. She arrived with tons of papers and tears in her eyes. She literally was crying, and she stayed up the entire night. She did her best to prepare, but she was not well prepared. Of course, they'd only given her this 2 days before, and she didn't even do trials like this. So it also turned out that his lawyer was the husband of the judge. Interesting, should have recused herself, but didn't. So anyway, it was too many shadows of doubt created, and it ended in a hung jury. And I didn't get justice in the courtroom. I got justice with God, because he began to teach me about letting go and forgiveness. It was the path to healing of my soul. Letting go. Lots of things in life aren't fair, right? Lots of things that happen to us aren't fair, and there isn't justice that we can see. But it's okay, because God knows everything. He's our healer. He's the restorer of our soul. Whatever it is, we can just let it go, because in that is healing and freedom. In that is our freedom. And that was my freedom, just forgiving and letting go. Forgiveness is the path to healing. And I forgave in stages. I think I've got an onion here somewhere. I guess not. I thought I had an onion. Oh, there it is. It's like that onion, and we've heard that analogy over and over again. The peeling of the onion, but it truly is. I could say over and over, oh yeah, I forgive this guy, I forgive him. It was just words, but it came with little bit of my soul. You know when deep in your heart, deep in your soul, you really are forgiving somebody. So at first, I couldn't forgive him at all. The only way I could go to sleep was that I overcame him. I killed him night after night in my thoughts and my dreams. And then eventually I chased him away. And then finally I came to a place where I could forgive truly and say I let it go. And I finally knew I'd really come to a place of forgiveness when I prayed for his soul one day, that he might be saved, you know. And that's when I knew I'd come to a place of really letting go and really forgiving. But as Father John teaches, would I let it go? Could I let it go? Letting go is part of forgiveness. When would I let it go? And he always says at our retreats to the people in the audience, it's okay to say I'm not ready yet. Could I let it go? Well, not when, not now. I'm not ready yet. And we have to be honest with ourselves. When are we ready to let this hurt go? So unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You've heard that analogy a lot. It's really true. It was true for me. And it seemed like in the stages that I was able to forgive were the stages where I was healed, able to be healed at a deeper and a deeper and a deeper level. Once in my life, I would read about well-being and think, I have no idea what that word means. Being complete, whole, entire, wholeness, healed. What does that really mean? But there came a day where I thought, I feel like I am whole. I feel like God has put me back together again. And I realized we can all be whole, and he wants to put us all back together again. But sometimes it's the simple little things, the tiny little offenses, seem the hardest to forgive, the hardest to let go of. How could somebody in the store treat me like that? They're having a bad day, probably. Maybe something horrible just happened to them. Who knows? We have to let go of all of it, right? The little things, the big things, and that is our healing. And that's what we're heading toward this Lenten season, resurrection in our lives. Putting that nail in the coffin of the past, but draining it. Emotion, I love the title of this one book, and I forget the author. Emotions buried alive, or emotions that we never let go of are buried alive, but we never, I can't remember the exact title, but we never get rid of them. They're buried alive, they're still there. And it's only the purging and truly letting go of it that's going to cleanse that. So I just have a few questions to close with. Is there anybody you need to forgive? Is there anybody in your life that you would like to or should write a letter of forgiveness to? I wrote a letter of forgiveness to my mother, and she'd long been gone, but I wrote it for me. I wrote a letter of forgiveness to my dad and mailed it to him when he was alive, and he called me, and all he did was cry. Oh. And 30 days later, he died. We never know. And I think, Chad, you had asked a question a couple weeks ago. Does anything happen ever for the person that we forgive that they may not know that we're forgiving them? I've heard many stories. People who say, wow, I forgave that person and they got free of something. or their life changed in some way. We never know what's going to happen and what God is going to do as we're obedient to what He's called us to. So is there any area in your life where you feel like you are captive of something? An obsession, an addiction, a fear, a health condition, anything? He came to set the captives free. That's the part of Isaiah 61 that I love so much. He came to set the captives free. Are you tormented in any area of your life? Either night, bad dreams, can't sleep, whatever. He came to set the captive free. So where do you need healing? I just leave you with that question and with my story. Without a doubt, Jesus is our healer.
Amen. Can they ask you a few questions?
Yes.
Let them know.
Yep. Any questions now, because this
Or
is...
comments.
Or comments. Or stories, as long as it's not as long as mine. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
I have one comment. You know, you said it takes time to forgive. And, you know, the Lord knows that we come from a different nature than His. And it takes time for us to grow spiritually. And
Yes.
that's why He says, keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. Because it's over. Like, we can say we forgive somebody, but like you said, we don't feel it.
Right.
And we continually have to keep working towards that.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It's a journey. Well, I love what Orthodoxy teaches. We are saved, we are being saved, and we shall be saved. And it's the journey.